Hello there, my little hopeless romantics. Welcome back to the Vibing with series with me, your hostess, Kellyanne Maddox. I'm very excited to talk to you today about the lovers, but before we get into that, I want to let you know that every single episode of Vibing with is sponsored by me. I am actually a full-time professional card slinger. You can pop on over to my store and have a look at a gigantic collection of very thoughtfully designed spreads that I've put together for my clients. I serve many clients. I'm so lucky to be able to say that I make my full-time living doing tarot readings, and I do readings about love, I do readings about work, I do readings for the deep dive, the shadow work stuff, the self-love, all of that stuff. So you can go and have a look at all of my different options. I also wanted to take a moment to let you know, because I'm aware that a lot of people don't know, I actually have packages of sessions as well. I've got business mentoring sessions, spiritual counseling sessions, I've got witchy brainstorming sessions for the needs of your average everyday sorcerer. I've got lots of different things going on. I've even got book birthing sessions and packages that you can buy in bulk. You can get one or you can buy in bulk if you want to work with me on a more ongoing basis. So definitely check out the sessions as well. You might not necessarily want cards read, but guaranteed there is something for you over at my little online home. So make your way over there. The link is down in the description as always. And I'm going to take this second bracelet off because I know that it's going to bother me. The sound of it is going to bother me. You know, I'm very bracelet and bangle happy, my darlings. You just don't see it because I tend to take the ones off that rattle while I'm making a video. So, okay, now I am de-braceleted. I just have this one little pearl number on. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the lovers. This is a very thrilling stop in our journey through the 78 cards. There is a lot to say. I've got a lot to unpack here. Going to go through the light, the shadow, all of that stuff. But let's begin with my opening thoughts on this very intriguing card. So every single episode of Vibing With, I always hold up a card from the deck that I'm using or that I've got nearest to hand. But today I dug a little deeper. I went looking for my Star Spinner Tarot, my loves, because I'm really loving the Lovers card from Star Spinner, and I have ever since I bought this deck. Look at this beautiful sapphic image of the lovers from Star Spinner. I believe there's 2 or 3 options for the lovers in this deck. You can choose which one you want, and I chose this one. How gorgeous. Wandering together beneath the tree, in deep conversation, sharing confidences with each other, and the nakedness symbolizing all that vulnerability and trust and openness. And we're going to get into that when we talk more about what is in the kind of like light, conscious, gorgeous area of the lovers. But first of all, let me give you some opening thoughts, okay? The truth about the lovers is that it's a very mixed bag. People have a very mixed reaction to it for sure, because I think it's very pigeonholed. I think it's very characterized as just kind of like, it's a card about romantic love. So if you are having a reading where you're looking for romantic love, you might be really pleased to see the lovers in particular. You might want to see it come up, unless it's in the spread position of like, what do you not have any chance of? What are the energies aligning against? Then obviously you wouldn't want to see the lovers. But if you're freshly heartbroken, you know, you're going through something where you're separating from a lover, you might not want to see it. If romantic love is not part of your life, you might not want to see it. But the reality with all of that is that it's just a really narrow reading of the lovers. It's really a shame. It's very rigid, and it's kind of just a very boxed in view of what the lovers is about. It can be representative of romantic love. It can be about that incredible new relationship energy. It can be about the deepening of love. It can be about the balance, unity, harmony, and the intensity of the romantic attachment. But it's about so much more than that. And I think that is where we really begin to deepen into what the lovers can give us, aside from being a symbol of romantic unity, because it is a symbol of romantic unity, but more than that, it's just a symbol of unity. And so I think that's one of the hurdles when I'm helping people to study tarot. Yes, I do teach people card slinging. You can grab one of them over at my online store as well, a card slinger session or package. But when I'm working with students around the lovers, that's one of the main blocks that come up. You know, when I see it, it's stereotyped. When I see it, I pigeonhole it, and I can't think outside the box. So hopefully this video is going to give you some ways in which you can do that. I would really love to be the one. If you're boxed in with the lovers and you can't think of any other sort of meanings for it, I'd love to be the one to get you over that hurdle. I think the lovers is a very classic card. You know, it's like one of those very sort of noticeable, iconic sorts of cards. And I think it can be highly symbolic symbolic of something ongoing or incoming that is very beautiful, that is alchemical in a way, to do with the unity between human beings. But I'm really looking forward to being able to peel back some of the layers and show you what else is there when it comes to the theme of unity with this card as well. My journey with the Lovers as a pro card slinger, it's never really been my favorite, I have to say. It's had its high points for me. I think right at the beginning of the journey, I found it to just be like, oh, the Lovers. I mean, you know, it's so on the nose. It's so basic. Everybody knows what that means. But of course, I had made a grave mistake with that, and I hadn't looked into the depth of the card. By the time I went pro, I was having a much better relationship with it. And so I really had to go on a journey there. It was definitely one of the cards that I had to journey with a little bit more. And so don't feel bad if you still have what you feel is a very rudimentary understanding of the Lovers, despite having read cards for quite some time, because that is very normal. I went through that as well. And I just feel like obviously there's so much more the card has to give, but we really have to be able to dive in and to trust ourselves to know that there are bits of meaning around the corner with the Lovers, and it's not just that thing that we see on the surface, although of course that is a very important reading of it, but only where that reading of it is relevant, guys. Only where it's relevant. Where it's not relevant, don't fear, don't reshuffle, don't start again, don't tell yourself that the Lovers is not the card you should have received, because that is a grave mistake. It is the card you should have received. Okay, there is meaning there for you. If you're not looking into anything to do with romantic attachment, you're not interested in romantic attachment, you're perfectly happy and you get the Lovers and you're like, oh, I'm happy with my partner, or I'm not looking for a partner, why is this coming up? I get you. I feel you. It can be frustrating. Let's get into what it could mean. And before I get into the light and shadow of this card, let me just say that with every new understanding and with every deepening of the bond that I've had with this card, with the Lovers, I have realized that it is integral to the plot of what it means to have and work with a tarot deck. Without the Lovers, I think without any card in the deck, okay, it's a 78 card system for a reason, but without the Lovers, I think, yeah, tarot would be bereft of something really vital, really beautiful, really important. So it's really celebrating. This whole video for me is about celebrating my deepening bond and my sort of strengthening relationship with this card. Okay, we're all cozied up now. Okay, me and this card are all cozied up. So I'm looking forward to explaining to you how I did that. Belief in the power of connection, belief in the power of unity between yourself and somebody else, belief in the potential of a bond, you know? That's really one of the key things that is so beautiful about the Lovers coming up in a reading. It's really about that feeling that even if you're nervous of a bond between yourself and another person, even if you feel there are dangers, even if you've been hurt previously, you believe in love, you believe in connection, you believe in conversation, you believe in vulnerability. There's a lot in the Lovers to do with trust and vulnerability and willingness to move forward with a connection, even though by the time most of us get proficient at learning tarot, right, by the time we actually can make our way around a deck, we've usually had at least a heartbreaking friendship ending, if not also some kind of romantic tryst that ended negatively, some kind of business connection or relationship to a bunch of people that kind of went awry. And so we actually could decide that we're going to think of relationships in quite bad faith from that point on. We're going to pull away. We're not going to be in our vulnerability. We're not going to share ourselves with somebody, and we're not going to accept and take on what they want to share with us, because you know what, we're done, we've had enough, we're cynical, we're skeptical, we're cold of heart. The Lovers is that part of you that is like, no, I'm going to remain open. I actually think it's valuable to have bonds. I actually think that there could be potential for me with somebody else in some way. And it doesn't have to be romantically. It can definitely come up in that context, but it can also be about friendship. It can also be about creative collaboration and all of those things. But essentially, it's about the beauty of unity. It's about the harmony of a nice bond that is mutually beneficial, where people are both giving and receiving, where you've got a vibe with each other. And that is one of the most sensational things about the Lovers card. I think it's about belief in connection. Even against all the odds, you know, even when you thought you were done sometimes. Yes, the Lovers can be about the burning intensity of something that you've never felt for somebody before, of the kind of connection that really is once in a lifetime, or it feels like really different to anything you've ever had. But I think the Lovers can also come along for somebody who really believed that they were kind of done, you know, they were going to sit it out, they were going to be on the subs bench, because there's so much that's gone on in their life that they just felt like, you know what, I don't really want to give myself to that kind of thing anymore because it's too high risk. And suddenly the Lovers card is that representation that there is still a part of you that is unthawed, that is willing to share of yourself, that is willing to be in your vulnerability. And that's why the figures in the Lovers are very, very often naked. The nakedness represents that openness, that vulnerability, that willingness to share of yourself. And that's a pretty big deal for a lot of people at a lot of different stages in life. So that really can't be overlooked. You know, it's that urge towards vulnerability, that yearning for the exchange between yourself and another person, and that belief that it's possible to have that and not break. It's possible to have that and believe in it and see that it's a victory to believe in it, and you get good things out of it, and it feels nourishing and it feels worthwhile. The Lovers can often be about attraction. It can be about chemistry. It can be about that feeling that there are certain elements in play between yourself and another human being that really feel good, that really feel sensational and glorious, and you want to go with it. You feel an intuitive but also maybe biochemical urge towards it. So there's a lot of excitement. You know, the Lovers is a very fizzy kind of card where you really feel like, wow, like this is it. This is so magical. This feels so intense in the most beautiful of ways. I'm going to go with this. I want this right now with every fiber of my being, you know. So there is something about it that has that intensity of the unfolding between yourself and somebody else.
Do you realize I would have gone through life half awake if you'd had the decency to leave me alone.
Why me? Perhaps we woke up each other.
And look, when that shit's good, it's good. Let's face it. I mean, that's beautiful. So when you want that, whether it's romantic or whether it's in a friendship way, whatever it happens to be, and you feel it coming into your life, the Lovers can very often be that part of you that has the instinct to make space for it. The figures in the Lovers are aligned. They are aligned. They are in a thing with each other where they're on the same page. They're working on something together. They're working on building, let's say, some kind of joint energy signature. And there's some kind of an agreement, whether it's spoken or unspoken, that that alignment is what is being appreciated and honored and preserved. And so any situation where you have that in your life, or where you want that and you want to strategize for that in your life, can be what this tarot card is about when it comes in. But there's something really important that I want to share with you that I feel like really upped my game as a professional card slinger when it comes to the Lovers. I like to think of the Lovers as a kind of triad energy. So let's have a look at that unity and harmony and understanding kind of umbrella that I've sort of set up for you. Let's imagine that underneath there is a trio of lover energies, okay? And the trio that I like to use to define the Lovers is connectivity with others, yes, right? Connection to other people, relationships, but also connection to yourself, your relationship with you. And thirdly, and importantly as well, connection to the divine, connection to the gods, connection to what is beyond cognition and beyond the material. I think all of those three things sit comfortably under the umbrella of the Lovers. So let's break them down, okay? I've kind of already broken down the first one for you, the belief in connection with others, investing in those bonds, opening yourself up, in other words, giving of yourself and receiving back the vulnerability that is given to you and building something in that way. Let's think about the other two, connection with yourself. I think the Lovers can represent a marriage to oneself. I think the Lovers can be the notion of you walking with you, listening to you, having chemistry with you, appreciating your points of view, your ideas. And there's something truly remarkable about that. And that's very often overlooked, I think, with the Lovers. So it can be about being an ally to yourself. It can be about knowing when you've got to put your needs first. It can be about listening to yourself, your body, your intuition, your deep yearnings, your deep fears, and really taking that seriously. You know, I think there's many situations in life where we give a lot more to the relationships we have with others, and we take that a lot more seriously. We show up for those bonds a lot more deeply than we show up for the bond with ourselves. And so the Lovers can be a little bit of a gentle alarm bell back to that marriage to self, that relationship with oneself. And then thirdly, it's that divinity piece. It's thinking about how your relationship is with the divine in whatever way you choose to see that, whether you have gods that you work with, whether you work with the earth mysteries, whether you work with guides, with ancestors, you know, that kind of thing. Whatever it is, whatever complex cosmology you have going on in your spiritual path, the lovers can speak to that as well. It's about how firmly and how intimately do you feel that you are linked up with the divine, with its voice, with its guidance, with its sacred characteristics, and how that helps you in your life path. So if you've got all three of those under that umbrella of the theme of unity, the theme of connection, then you've got a few more different places that you can go with the lovers. You know, it's not so restricted. It's not so boxed in to just that kind of like idea of romantic love, which is just one of many different facets of this diamond, okay? One thing that really helped me a lot in my journey as a professional card slinger in understanding the lovers was understanding the great seriousness that it can bring about. You know, when I first started working with tarot, the lovers kind of seemed like a bit of a shallow, glib, yes, very fizzy kind of card, but it didn't really have meat to it, right? It didn't have weight. And that was wrong. That was a mistake on my part. It's very weighty, because if you think about it in terms of your relationship with another person, it can represent the deepening of it. It can represent the act of commitment. It can represent opening up about your secrets or sharing about your fears, or being able to really stand in front of someone else while they're sharing about their shadows and their fears or whatever, and taking it on, not walking away, being together, agreeing together that you've both signed a contract that moves you towards alignment. And in order to be aligned, you have to be truthful, you have to be honest, you have to want to open up. It's got to be more than just surface level. And so there is all of that. There's the sense that perhaps it's a fresh stage for you in a relationship. Maybe in general, you're just looking for more serious relationships in your life of any kind. So there's definitely something very weighty there. When you look at it in terms of your relationship with yourself, again, it's very weighty. It can often represent moments where you're really trying to define what your ethics are, what your life path is, what you owe to yourself, what you will not put up with anymore. So it's really looking at the contract you have with you. What do you want for yourself? What will you fight for yourself? It's like a moment of emotional reckoning sometimes, I think, when the lovers comes up and we're really thinking about our deep connection to us, because it can be about reunifying with the self after a time of self-abandonment. That is a really big one. That is a very, very meaty, deep meaning of the lovers. It's really returning to you. It's kind of like mirror work, you know? You're looking at yourself and you're thinking, who am I? What do I want to be? What do I insist on for me? What are my commitments to myself? If you're thinking about it in terms of the divine, very often the lovers comes up when I do deity guidance readings, and that's really big, because very often when it comes up in a deity guidance reading, it's that deity like pulling you to them and saying, it's us, we're going to a deeper place, we're going further, like I mean it, it's real. So it's a reassurance from the divine. It can be a confirmation of what you feel is happening with the divine. It's really a moment for your beings, your gods, your ancestors to come into the room and say, yeah, this is an absolute full-on lifelong love affair, baby. Like, don't doubt it. Go with it, flow with it, be with it. Let it change you. Let it do something for you. Let it complete you. So it's really weighted in that sense as well. I think the lovers is so much more than what I thought it was in the beginning, which was like, you know, it's joyful connection between people and it's probably romantic. You know, it was kind of a naive view on it. What I realize now is that the lovers is contractual, and I'm not saying, oh, it's a marriage or it's a business idea. No, I'm saying it's soulfully contractual. It's about really eyeballing something or someone and saying, I mean this. I love this, I care about this, and I'm here and I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to invest at the soul level. So very psycho-spiritually weighted, the Lovers card, much more than I think we often realize in the beginning as readers. It creeps up on you, the energy of the Lovers, and before you know it, you're like, oh my God, I'm really feeling something here, and that's good. That is a very good thing. Sometimes when the Lovers comes up in a reading, it's not really referencing any particular connection per se. It's more asking you to think about what your rules are, what your rules of engagement are, what your red flags and no compromise zones are, what your green flags are when it comes to any kind of connection to you. How much time and energy do you want to spend? What have you learned previously about what it means to be connected? What's safe for you? What's unsafe for you?
Too many guys think I'm a concept, or I complete them, or I'm gonna make them alive. But I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours.
How do you operate as a person who seeks connection and who sometimes has connection come in, whether you were really seeking it or not? You know, I think every single person that reads tarot, no matter what is going on in their life, has moments where they say, what do I want from any kind of connection that I feel to anything? What do I want out of a sense of alignment, whether that's with a person, with a project, with a God, with myself, with this location that I'm in, with the world around me? Like, how do I want to show up and feel that connection? And sometimes we find when the Lovers card comes along that we may have gone through some changes that have made us realize that we want something different. We expect perhaps something more. We are healing from a form of connection in the past that felt toxic or was dangerous to us. And so now, as we go forward, we need to really sharpen and hone and polish our sense of what healthy connection really means so that we can move forward into the other connections that are coming through in the future and know that we're doing that from a place that is safe for us. So the Lovers is not always referencing a connection that is happening right now or that is imminently going to come in. Sometimes it's just saying, who are you as someone who connects? What does that mean for you? And what are you looking for? And what the fuck are you not looking for? That's just as important. So when the Lovers comes up, sometimes, depending on the spread position, depending on what you're looking for with the reading, you may find that actually what this card is asking you is, well, what do you want from any particular equation? Make sure that when you're walking into something that isn't even now in your life, but it will come in the future, it will come in at some point, make sure you're in readiness, make sure you're prepared. This card can be about all kinds of things. It can be about what kind of connection do you want with future friends if you're looking for different social circles? If you plan to have children in the future, if you're planning to have children now, what do you want from that? You know, are you looking for creative collaborations? Are you looking to do more activism? Well, hold up, hang on. Why don't you write down a little manifesto about what you are and are not looking for connection-wise, what you will and will not accept? What are you going to look out for? What are your ideal circumstances for connectivity? And so that can be a very interesting exploration, you know. It might seem more general and therefore not as weighted, but I think the Lovers a few times before has given me an amazing opportunity to connect deeply with this idea of like, what do I mean by unity? What do I mean by harmony? What is alignment? What happens when two people are on the same page? What happens when you're seriously rocking deeply with a God? You know, what does it mean to be married to oneself? You know, what do I mean by that? And what have I thought was what I wanted before, maybe? But then I've realized like, oh, fuck, no, not that. Never that again. Like, you know, so it can give you an opportunity to clean house and really think, when the word relationship comes up, where do I go in my psyche? How does my body feel? And why is that the response? Why is that the reaction? And how might I want to work on changing that or understanding that? Okay, darlings, it's time to get into the underbelly, the more nasty side, the less appealing side of the Lovers. Okay, this is the shadow stuff. This is where it gets difficult. Every single card has that difficult part to it, and the Lovers is no exception. So obviously, when I talked about sort of the more conscious presence of the Lovers, when the Lovers is operating healthily, I talked about alignment. I talked about, you know, unity, right? That feeling of harmony that comes when you're on the same page with someone, when something feels as though it's aligned, it's fair, it's kind of dancing nicely. When the card is in shadow, the opposite thing is true. There's some kind of misalignment, and that can come from different things, okay? The first thing I want to mention when it comes to the shadow of the Lovers is sometimes it can represent a situation where you or the person you're reading for or the person you're reading about, whatever it is saying that they want alignment, and they're saying they want equality and harmony and all of that stuff and compromise and understanding. But the way that they're operating, or the way that you're operating, is as though you want control. It's as though you want to be top dog. It's as though you expect everything to be rigidly adhering to the way that you think a relationship should be, and you're not open to compromise. You're not listening really to the other person's thoughts and fears and concerns. You're pretty convinced that you're the one that understands how things should go. And so the Lovers can be about selfishness. It can be about somebody insisting that they really are the one that heads up the relationship. They're the one that should be adhered to. What they say goes. And so it can really be about that kind of toxicity. So the lovers can come as a little bit of a warning shot sometimes when we're being asked to consider whether or not our relationships really are fair. Are we behaving fairly? Are they behaving fairly? Is this actually a situation where there is a sense of safety for everybody and a sense that everybody is being listened to? Or is this a situation where somebody feels forced to kowtow to the other person, you know? So it's very heavy. The lovers in shadow is a heavy business. Okay, I never said it wasn't. It's definitely an opportunity to look at that and say, is this balanced? Is this fair? Is this respectful in both directions? And if not, where am I seeing those issues coming through? Where do I have stuff to clean up on my side of the street? And whereabouts do I need to witness that somebody else is doing that to me consistently? Even when I may have tried to alert them to that, they're not listening. Somehow they've got it in their head that they're right and what they say goes. And actually, I don't feel respected, and so there can't be an alignment based on that fact. The lovers obviously looks like a card that has a lot of closeness and harmony and kindness and like mutually beneficial compassion going on. So one of the shadows of the lovers is basically that something appears that way. It appears that way, but it's not that way, you know. So the surface sort of facade of what a relationship is not what's really going on under the surface. So it's asking you to peel things back and really look and understand and ask yourself, is this what I signed up for? Is this what we're pretending it is? Is this what other people think it is? Or is there something going on beneath the surface that doesn't look like this charming, harmonious arrangement where both people are being listened to and there is that alignment and that healthy interaction, you know? Because sometimes I think we can put on a show, somebody else can be putting on a show, but actually when we look at it, it's fractured and it's fucked up and it needs to be fixed or to accept that the fixing isn't possible. Sometimes when the lovers is in shadow, the misalignment comes from a feeling of distance. It comes from a feeling of separation. And we can sort of split that up, I think, into two types of distance and separation sort of contemplations. The first is that there's a sense of distance or separation or misalignment because the relationship is coming to some kind of close. And so there's a grieving process that happens sometimes when we're looking at that more difficult side of the lovers. It's accepting that maybe the relationship has been on life support for some time, and it's time to accept that something new needs to grow or develop, or that we need to stand at the graveside of the relationship a while and accept that the fate is that the relationship has come to a close. It can mean that we sort of loosen our white knuckle grip around everything that this relationship has meant to us and the insistence that we've had on keeping it and maintaining it. And instead we kind of say, you know, there's something there that isn't aligning anymore. And it can be because neither party is able to put in what they need to put in. It can be that the querent themselves, upon seeing that card, realizes suddenly, oh wow, the distance and the separation, those feelings of misalignment are coming because I don't want to invest anymore. I'm not 100% convinced that that's where I want to put my energy. It's not what I'm feeling anymore, and I need to accept responsibility for that. So that can be difficult, and it can lead sometimes to difficult conversations with self and with other and with Godhead sometimes, depending, because of course, like I said, the lovers is not just about unity between people, connections between people. It's really whatever the subject matter of the reading is about, that's what it hits upon, you know. So there's definitely that sense that something is over, it's run its course, you're trying to hang on to it, you need to be honest about that. The other sort of distance and separation energy that can come through is based on interference. It's much more of an interference between you and the other. Okay, so if we think about when you're trying to have a really great, close, excited, hour-long conversation with someone on the phone, but it's a shitty signal. Something is getting in the way of you being able to hear each other. Something is stopping you from really getting that clear communication. And it can be insecurities or shadows playing out in one or the other of you. It can be interference from another person, so triangulation, for example, or somebody just really trying to fuck with the connection for one reason or another. It can also be that there are external variables like stresses at work, you know, stresses with chronic health issues, worries about the future, just worries about other things that are making you take the connection for granted or not giving it the time and the energy and the focus that it's maybe asking for in that moment. So it's really looking at, you know, obviously there's a desire for alignment, but what's in the way? Sometimes the shadow of the lovers can be asking you to examine what is in the way, identify it, name it, really be honest about it and seek to bring some resolution to that, you know, decide how you can maintain a beautiful alignment and deal with issues. decide how you might need to take the alignment away from the white noise and the interference, and really sort of be raw with each other and speak honestly. I really like this area of the shadow of the lovers because I think sometimes there's just a lot of bullshit going on and there's a lot of hot air. There's a lot of people saying what they think should happen in a connection. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of madness going on in the outer world. And the lovers comes along and it's kind of like that snap back to reality for you, you know? It's kind of saying, if you want to maintain this alignment and this connection, this depth, this giving and receiving, you really need to get rid of all that. Cut that away. Have a serious conversation, right? No bullshit, no games, and really get down to what it is that the both of you want. So it can be very sobering when it comes up in that regard. And it's really saying there's a lot of outside stuff coming in, interfering, having its way with the energetic connection. And, you know, if you want to maintain alignment, then you have to make sure that you reinstate communication. Sometimes communication is the issue, you know, sometimes it really is a case of you're opening up, but you feel like you're not getting that same vulnerability in response, or vice versa. They're opening up, but because of everything you've been through and how many times your heart's been hammered, you feel like it's really hard to get to this point, you know? Maybe you just feel like there's a gut feeling that it's not, you know, the timeline that the other person wants the connectivity and the trust to be developed is not okay with you. You need to slow it down. You're not 100% trusting that you can give to the degree that the other person can give to this. Maybe you just want to slow things down. But in either regard, there can be a mismatch in the amount of communication that people are willing to actually offer. And that can be resolved. That doesn't need to result in an ending per se. But sometimes it does need to. Sometimes somebody just wants more openness and more frankness than the other is willing to give at that time. Whenever the shadow message of the lovers is around, you know, lack of communication, lack of clarity, really needing to understand what the other is thinking and feeling and needing to make space for that, it's really important, because if people do not find some way to communicate what is going on and communicate what it is they're really feeling, the narrative can be poisoned by other things. We can hear things through the grapevine. We can start, you know, listening to the rumor mill, or we can listen to well-meaning friends who don't have all of the information and they're not really understanding the fullness and the depth of what's gone on in the relationship prior to them kind of like sticking their oar in and giving advice. So in the absence of communication from the person we're misaligning with, we can start to communicate a lot in other ways. And then we start filling in the blanks. We start mind reading, if you will. We start making up a narrative about what is going on. And we can actually end up really, really mistaken. So the Lovers card is often about like cutting all of that away, getting very emotionally naked with somebody and just saying, look, this is what the fuck it is. Okay. And now we're down to the wire. What are we going to do about it? So that there's definitely an agreement there to be raw and real, and the acknowledgement that you might have gone off track because there hasn't been that raw and real communication going on, and you want to reinstate that, you want to bring that back. Without any shadow of a doubt, my darlings, one of the difficult areas of the Lovers is obsession. Obsession, fixation, the desire to merge so completely that you lose your sense of selfhood. You deprioritize other relationships, you deprioritize your own needs, everything else goes by the wayside. You lose your routines that you've built up, other successes that you've been building start to crumble and tumble because you're really about this connection. There can be such an urgency to merge with the other that you forget oneself. And sometimes there can be such an urgency to merge with the self that you forget the other. Okay, it depends what's happening. But as you can see with the Lovers, like there's very, very little space between them, you know? So yes, one of the shadows can be that there is something coming between and pushing you apart. But one of the shadows can also be that you can't see daylight between the two of you ever, psycho-spiritually, right? You're losing your own life. You're losing your own sense of yourself. It's become an obsession. It's become really your only point of focus. And you really need to be a bit more expansive with what's going on. Give some energy and some love and some focus to other areas of your life, because it can just be far too intense and you're just giving like all of your energy to this one thing. So there's definitely that sense that it's gone too far, it's gotten obsessive and you can't see around it, over it, under it, beyond it. You know, it's just really, really enveloping you, and it might be making you behave very out of pocket. It might be causing you to accept other people's very off-kilter behaviors. Everything's gone a little bit wonky in terms of like your guidelines for yourself, what you will accept and how you will respond. All of that goes out of the window because There's an obsession, you know, there's some kind of cyclical sense of deep need that has a hunger behind it, you know, like a ferocious hunger that makes you, the other, or both behave a little bit like, you know, not great, just not great. So there's really that needs to be looked at. Sometimes the lovers just represents that sense that it's become so intense that it's gone way overboard. One thing that's interesting to note about the lovers whenever it comes up in a more difficult position is that all of the equality and unity and understanding and bonding that is represented by the lovers takes work. It takes work. It doesn't always come easy. It's not always flawless and seamless. It takes a lot to remain in alignment. It takes a lot to be open in communication. It takes a lot to keep coming back and investing and agreeing that, yes, we want this, and yes, we're going to work through things, you know? So the more difficult area of the lovers can be any area where we're just being tested. The relationship is being tested. The commitment is being tested for whatever reason. And we are finding that hard. We're finding it hard to acknowledge that that's actually part of the fabric of the connection. Maybe we're feeling disillusioned because it's quite a lot of work. Maybe we were never expecting to come up against the hurdle that we've come up against. So, for example, the lovers can come up when you have your first big blowout, when you have your first big argument. The lovers can come up when you disagree on something that's really, really important to both of you, and you obviously feel really deeply about it, but you're not really vibing on it and it's hurting.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Isn't that the word of the fucking day?
Well, it's all I fucking heard tonight. Oh, he's such an authentic filmmaker. The movie is so authentic. He was able to channel his voice so authentically.
You know why people love that word? It's
Why?
because they don't know what makes something good.
Yeah, well, I think authenticity is key.
Of course you do, because that's all you have to offer.
Oh,
that's anyone,
wow,
all they
it's
have
all
to say.
I have to
It's the
fucking
only
offer.
word
Okay,
that people
thank
that don't
you,
know shit
Malcolm.
about film feels like they got something to offer. But nobody knows
No, I
or
have
cares about
nothing to
film
offer.
anymore. They can't say anything about film, but they love to talk about authenticity.
You know, and maybe you're shocked that that's the case. The lovers can come up when you've had a long-standing issue time and time again, and you've started to realize that it's coming to crunch time, that you really need to decide, like, what are we going to do about this because it keeps coming up. The lovers can be about those moments where one or the other of you have done something in the spirit of poor communication, nasty communication. Maybe you've walked away instead of staying. Maybe you've said something that you didn't mean to say. You know, all of these things where you've realized, like, wow, that wasn't the best way to have handled it. I'm disappointed in myself that I handled it this way. I'm feeling upset or disoriented with the other person because they handled it a certain way. Are we going to come back into alignment? Are we going to agree that we're going to be constructive rather than destructive, and that we both agree that we've invested in this thing and we still want to honor that emotional contract? That stuff is difficult to accept, you know? So I think the lovers can really represent that. It's any time where you feel the relationship is being tested, you're seeing parts of each other that you don't enjoy, that you really maybe don't feel you can respect. Sometimes, yes, that's absolutely a red flag. It's a no compromise zone. But in a lot of situations, it's just what you've got to do to continue a friendship or relationship. Every so often you have a tiff. Every so often you disagree on something. Every so often something comes up and you're like, why would you behave that way? That was selfish. That was cold. That was unfeeling. That was insensitive. That was arrogant, or whatever. And it's really knowing that when you want to do this for a reasonably long time with someone, including yourself, you're going to find that there are times where it's crunchy and you're like, oh, I didn't like that. That really upset me. That made me feel, you know, icky. I didn't like that. You know what? That's because absolutely nobody is perfect. And so sometimes the lovers is just about one of those really crunchy times in a connection where it's like, oh, fuck, I really didn't want this to happen. It feels unpleasant, you know? And it's about whether or not you're both going to lock onto the value of communication and get that shit sorted out together or not. You know, it's about whereabouts that commitment is in your list of priorities, and can something be fixed, you know? I also think, just as an aside, that, you know, the lovers in shadow is about that moment where something's really down to the wire. Like, for example, let's say that you're thinking about an art show that you're putting on, that you've put a lot of work into, and you're looking for that alignment with that project, you know, and you're doing a reading about it. If the lovers comes up as like, what is the fundamental issue? It could be something like, You're in the middle of the art show and suddenly you're wondering if this is even the art show you should be doing. You're low on confidence. You're doubting your ability to be able to put this together. You're wondering if it's really resonating anymore. You're halfway through and you're having a panic, right? Sometimes the lovers can come up when you and somebody that you're in alignment with and that you love have made a decision to do something, and you're halfway through doing it and suddenly you feel like you want to go off and be alone. You feel like you want to take back your energy. You're faltering in your commitment to something. So it can really be about just that moment where you have to question and you have to really get right with, is this where you want to put your energy? And it can come at a really inconvenient time. It can come at a time that is not the beginning. It's very much in the middle when you should know damn well that you're committed and that you want to be in alignment. And suddenly you're like, fuck, I don't know if I want to be aligned to this anymore. And so it can come at a bit of a crisis point. That's one of the more difficult shadows of the lovers. Well, darlings, this has been a breakdown of the lovers, as always with my Vibing with series. It's not like a super deep analytical kind of video where I go far and wide into everything. It's your meat and potatoes, your bread and butter. It's what you're going to need if you're going to do a reading and this particular card comes up. I would, of course, love to know down below any and all other thoughts that you have about the lovers. And I'd love to know what your response is to this video and thinking about the themes that come up in the lovers. It is a really magical card. It can be dicey, definitely. It's definitely not, you know, a fun and games, this is really a light-hearted card. No, there's many layers to it that are asking for exploration, and sometimes it can come up and it can really, really ask you to check in with deep themes that are ongoing in your life. Don't forget that in many ways, my darlings, once you've gotten out of the rigidity of only reading the lovers as romantic love, the lovers is easy to read because it really does what it says on the tin. I mean, look at it. 9 times out of 10 in the decks that you use, you're seeing an image of connection. You're seeing an image of two people, sometimes more. Like, there's loads of different kinds of decks out there, okay? But really what you're seeing, whatever imagery you're working with, is really aligned with the title. And if it's not aligned with the title, at least you've got the title to guide your way, okay? The lovers, think about what that's about. It's about commitment to each other. It's about like giving and receiving. It's about bonding. It's about unity, connection, the depth of connection, you know, the negotiation that comes with it, the alignment that comes with it, the dance of energies together to create one energy signature. And of course, you still have your own. Don't forget, don't get into that obsession stuff, okay? Leave that at the door. But yes, the lovers, you can really think of it as kind of like alignment, commitment. And it can be about love, for sure. It can be about passion. It can be about dedication to that alignment. So whenever it comes up and you feel a bit lost, just think about, what is the subject of this reading? Whereabouts am I or my querent like looking for alignment, you know? Whereabouts is the alignment I seek? And then read the lovers in relation to that, rather than having it come out of nowhere and thinking, oh, it's a romantic love card. Oh, I'm not reading about romantic love. Then it's not about romantic love, my love, okay? But it is about some kind of romance. It is about you romancing you romancing your art, you romancing your future, you know, you feeling a romantic connection to whatever it is that comes next. It can be love in terms of friendship. It can be love in terms of commitment to a vision. So kind of that's how you've got to read it to make it, you know, to make it work more for various different things that come up in your life. I think it's such a waste to think of the lovers as just something to do with romantic love. I really do. I think that's a waste. We're throwing the card away when we do that. It has so much more depth than that. So don't feel like it's not relevant to you if that's not where you are and that's not what you're looking into. There's so much more to it than that. Darlings, I have hugely enjoyed making this video for you, and I'll be back soon for the next episode of Vibing With. Like I said, leave your comments down below, get subscribed if you're not subscribed, click the notification bell so you can actually find out exactly when I have just uploaded, and you can come over and spend some time with me. Don't forget to check the online store if you would like to work with me one-on-one. That is possible. And you can also pre-order my new book, Witch in Darkness. It comes out in October. I will leave the details down below. So much love, my darlings, and until next time, keep card slinging and blessed be. Mwah.